Hi, I'm Don. Today we paint another creature caster resin miniature. I gave the miniature a gray primer and then a white primer from the top, and as usual these days, we start with Army Painter SpeedPaints. The main focus of the video today is the painting of the blue skin, so watch the video as we turn this miniature into this. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome back to my studio. This channel is supported by all these awesome brands. And of course, this channel won't be possible without the support of my patrons. I usually tell this to my patrons, especially my patrons who are attending my online workshops. And a few of them are used to the slop chop method. Like you do dry brushing or you prime with white and then you paint with speed paints or contrast paints. So I always ask them, and then what? So speed paints, for example, is really good at creating really nice shades for the model. Really quick shades and a little bit of subtle highlights. However, what do you do? How do you paint on top of the speed paints? Highlighting is easy, especially NMM, and especially for miniatures like this from Creature Caster, which is very detailed. So your highlighting is just tiny, like strokes of paint, and that will be really nice to look at. However, the tricky part is the painting of the larger areas. Like for example, with this model, the painting of the skin. We all know that contrast paints and speed paints are really great with addition of shades and making really nice definition of the shade areas. I mean, using these paints as our shade paint so that we create a little bit more contrast. However, you really still need to do layering so that you could properly paint and layer up towards your highlights. And since my painting style is grim pop, I call it grim pop because it's a bit green but I like very saturated colors and I simply want my miniature to pop. So in this video, we'll focus on talking about glaze layering. If you're an old-time subscriber, you know this technique already. Like I always say, why I like speed paints is because it creates nice shadows but very really nice subtle highlights. So you could see in the video right now, this is tabletop quality painting with speed paints and it's pretty good. Now, but layering with normal paints on top of the speed paints is kinda tricky because you will kinda ruin the nice shading that the speed paints created already. So unless you have a really good eye in terms of mixing colors so that you kinda sort of blend and match the highlight areas of the speed paints so that your layering looks nice and it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb, I highly recommend that you do glaze layering. You see now in the video that I'm stippling with my brush but I'm applying glaze layers. By glaze layers, I mean you need to thin down your paints roughly around 2 parts paint and 1 part medium. I prefer medium and you could tone down or thin it down to as much as 1:1, like 1 part paint and 1 part medium. And I call this, you see in the video right now, I call this fat glazes. Now, sketching or layering up with fat glazes is way better than painting with opaque paints because you're kinda slowly building up the colors and the layers and as you move towards your highlights. However, you could also refine this later if you really want a very smooth finish with thin glazes. Thin glazes can start at around 2 parts medium and 1 part paint to as much as 6 parts medium and 1 part paint. Once you reach your highlight colors, like the very nice highlights on the skin, now comes the easy part. You see in the video now is magic blue. I thinned it down 1:1 with SpeedPaint medium, and then I glaze it around the shade areas of the model. The shades will also help smoothen out your layering, or in this case, glaze layering. If you're a long-time subscriber or patron, you know that I love textures. So I did not glaze the model too much and made it too smooth, because I really like the stipples that you see on the skin. However, the painting of the armor and the rest of the model has no glazes. It's like just painting textures, doing proper layering, and then adding more shades. Here, I'm adding jumpsuit shade. It's like a dark or red orange shade, and this one, toxic shader, is a purple shade, and I'm finishing up the model with these shades. Now, before I reveal, a ton of thanks to all my patrons, because without my patrons, this channel won't be possible. So that's basically it for this video, at least. It's like, how do you layer up from the SpeedPaints base color? Basically, I recommend that you learn how to do glaze layering with fat glazes and thin glazes. You can actually skip the fat glazes if you're really into slowly building up and blending all your colors. You could focus on just thin glazes, but that is super time consuming. But if you're entering the model to a competition or something, then the thin glazes will work mighty fine. The rest of the painting, or basically the longer tutorial version of this video, is up at Patreon as usual. I hope you caught how I painted the gold armor, the non-metallic metal gold armor. However, I find this miniature, the armor parts, too small, so it's not really the perfect model to teach you non-metallic metal gold. So I'll find a perfect model for that, and I'll show you how I painted proper Gold NMM with SpeedPaints. That's it, Pansit. I hope you liked the video and watch these other videos.